This is Halo, the TV series. We're diving into episode 4 with a review here. Be sure to like the video, subscribing's great as well. If you have missed my previous reviews, I covered the first 2 episodes in a single review, and then I did last week's episode 3 by itself as another review. So if you'd like to go back into those and then, chat about things, I'd love to do so. But of course, let's dive into this week's episode. I do anticipate that I will be covering the future episodes as well as season 2. And I have been getting them as screeners from Paramount, so they have been asking to do some elements of keeping things spoiler free. But obviously, with a review, it's kind of hard to do that with a TV show since it's a set amount of time. But I will keep, the big reveals and everything like that a secret so that you can enjoy the episode if you are diving into this freshly. So, this 4th episode, which is Homecoming, is a split episode between 2 different perspectives that were kind of set up in the last episode. If you're looking for something that is a bit more action driven, there is some action, but at the same time, it doesn't feel very action-packed. We have the Master Chief heading to his childhood home in order to search for the next part of a special artifact. He is joined by Halsey, and Halsey's scientist person that's also kind of there. The other perspective is, I believe it's Woodbine and the young lady that the Master Chief saved early on are heading back to a very lost planet where this individual is kind of running things, so together they are looking around trying to figure out what happened to the Rebel Alliance, and also, trying to get an idea of the situation there, which is fairly dire, where this intense, I guess you would say almost totalitarian kind of government is running the show, which, makes sense in the outer kind of rim insurrectionist type places. So she's kind of dealing with the emotional bits of the fact that her family is sort of scattered and or broken alongside the groups and the generals and, lieutenants or whoever was running her little kind of, I guess you would say, insurrectionist type group. So that's kind of that part. So that's where the action is in this episode. The Chief portion of things is more about his emotions. The Chief's emotions. I mean, we got to see a lot of the Master Chief last week, and we got to see the cello sequence, which was, jam-packed action. And because of that cello sequence and that getting a good look at the Chief, the girl I was like, was kind of acting like a schoolgirl going, oh, she herself is on a bit of a journey of self-discovery and emotion where there is the dyeing of her hair red, and that actually kind of goes off into an interesting subplot that kind of dives into a lot of the history of the dialect understanding for the UNSC. And I think that kind of touches upon what that kind of extra third story arc is. That's just a smaller side thing, little subplot, without spoiling it. But basically, you've got, sort of this new Spartan also discovering and thinking about her emotions for the first time. And that was actually kind of interesting. But again, it's a lot of talking, a lot of sitting around, a lot of going over emotions. There hasn't been a whole lot of excitement or action going on in this season. The first 2 episodes, I was kind of like, it's okay, it's all right. I was like, okay, it's fine. Last episode wasn't huge on. I found it really, really boring and slow. And this episode does get a little bit more action. There's a little bit of some, violence, attacking, combat. That was interesting, but at the same time, it was just kind of like, oh, okay. It didn't really hit me as action, which was weird. It was just kind of there, scattered beyond this, meandering plot. It almost feels like there's too much going on. I don't know if it needs to focus more on the Chief, but then again, the Chief, his whole storyline is literally just walking around his child at home, remembering things, emotions. You do get a very iconic scene that revolves around a coin. If you've read the books, you might kind of know that context, so we got to see a little bit of a glimpse into that. But other than that, it was just the Chief kind of walking around in a forest. He does put on his helmet a little bit, which is nice, and you get to see a little bit of warthog action, which is not as exciting as one kind of hoped it would be, but, you get a little bit more insight into Halsey and some of the other characters, their interactions. So basically, kind of is split down into Chief diving into his emotions, Halsey kind of really thinking about the whole bigger picture here because she doesn't like imperfections, she doesn't like problems, she doesn't like inefficiency. And then you also get this other split where, these 2 individuals that I really like. I'm really not interested in that secondary storyline. I liked her interacting with the chief, the young girl in the first couple of episodes, but them going off on their own weird side mission just seems very strange. I don't know. It could, like, I think they're trying to build up a big human versus human conflict, and I think that's kind of going to be a subplot for the rest of the season. That's what they're kind of diving into. But I don't know if I'm that interested in it. I want, when I think of Halo, I think of the Chief, Cortana, and like Halo. Cortana's in this a little bit, not a whole lot, but she's there. Because last episode was her big reveal, her big showcase. If you missed that, and you're diving into this one for whatever reason, but yeah, it's just that other subplot just really I don't find that intriguing. I don't find it that interesting. I'm just like it could go in an interesting direction, but it seems 4 episodes in and we're still setting stuff up. It's like this is dense dialogue and conversation, and it just seems to really be stretching and meandering. Like if you kind of do an equivalent and you look at it as a movie, you would have had a film already finished like basically last episode, and they haven't like really stuffed much of anything into what's going on. And it's not like they're even juggling that many storylines. There's only a few separate plots, and it's very very slow. I'm hoping it picks up. Again, like I want to say this episode's an improvement over last week's, but it's very similar to how I felt about last week's episode. I am intrigued by the direction of where things are going, but I was kind of hoping they get to that direction faster, because it feels like they're just really, really taking their time to get to places. Like I can predict where they're going with every storyline, but they're just really slowly getting there, and that's kind of driving me almost a little bit crazy while I'm watching it. It's still something that I'm kind of enticed about. I want to see where it goes and what it does, but storyline wise, it's just kind of slowly getting to that point. It doesn't diverge anymore from the lore at this point. I didn't see any weird subsections or anything like that. The whole insurrectionist type thing could be an interesting angle. The whole Master Chief aspect, maybe they're discovering something neat and different. And then that third storyline actually was kind of intriguing because it dove into some of the lore behind how they've learned some dialect type things. And I think that was kind of neat. But I don't want this to just be like an emotional drive of them, like the Spartans all starting to feel. And it's weird. It's like you might as well just have like Terminators, like robots starting to learn to feel. And it's like the same storyline, but that's not what Halo really is supposed to be. I don't know. It's just a really strange situation for me. I'll see you next week for the next review of episode 5. I'm still on board. I'm still going along here, but I do want something a little bit more exciting to go on in the future. So hopefully that's the case. Not a whole lot to talk about this episode. Just very slow is the word I want to keep putting out there. Again, liking the video is great. Subscribing is great as well. If you want to talk about things in the episode, I'd love to. And yeah, Homecoming in Halo, the TV series.